Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today I'm delighted to welcome two gentlemen who first took the music world by storm in the early 90s with their mega hits, Things Can Only Get Better and You Are the Best Thing. Their first two albums reached the top 5 in the UK, and they've had 9 top 40 hits, bringing them worldwide success. After a long hiatus, they're back with their much anticipated new album, Open Hearts, Open Minds, which will be released on July 23rd. The first two singles from the new album, Meet Me at Midnight and Many Hands, are now available. Joining us are songwriter and lead vocalist Peter Cunnah and musician and DJ extraordinaire Alan Mackenzie, better known as Ream. Pete and Al, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, Harvey, I hope we're up to that intro there.
You are.
Wow.
Now, as far as I know, you're the only band that ever successfully created a fusion of indie, pop, and dance. Pete, I know you were a member of the indie rock band Ty the Boy for 7 years, but the songs you wrote for Ream were so musically and rhythmically different. What inspired that musical shift in your creativity?
That's a really good question. Thank you for that, Harvey. I think when I moved I came from Ireland, which was basically the kind of bands in Ireland. They had long hair and they were all playing guitars, and it was about going to like pubs and clubs and just playing to a lot of guys who were like headbanging, right? So it was beer and it was violence. And then I came to London, and within 2 or 3 years, I'd started going out to the right scenes. I'd taken a few jelly beans, if I can say that online. And that's a euphemism.
I got it.
And yeah, I had the Road to Damascus conversion. And the next thing I know, I'm working with Alan, and the beats that he was playing me they couldn't have been a world apart. This music was exciting. It was inclusive. It was dangerous. It had rhythm, it had a groove, it had depth. It felt mean sometimes, but then it felt glorious and uplifting. And I just wanted to be part of it. And Alan and I I don't know what happened there, Al. I suppose you came over to my house one night, reluctantly, I suppose. And do you remember?
Well, I have a vague recollection. It was a long time ago, but yeah, it was good fun.
And why were you reluctant, Al?
Don't think I was reluctant per se. I'd never done music, so I was just a DJ, and we were having fun, weren't we? I suppose my club, I used to run a night, it would be a night that Pete used to come to, and it was just quite hedonistic, but a bit of a laugh, and I know it was a whole new thing for me to go in the studio and make music because I'd never done it before. So it was quite, you've got to be trepidatious or something like that the first time you do it.
Well, I took it easy on him. I didn't bamboozle him with tech speak and all that, but I played him. I had on the mixing board, I had a very embryonic demo of You're the Best Thing, and it was basically the song. It was like a radio version. And Alan said, "I'll make that kick drum last for 32 bars." And I was like, "Alan, no one's going to listen to a kick drum for 32 bars. It's like watching paint dry, right?" And he's going, "It's not for you. It's for the other DJs, so they can lock the grooves together." And that's how and I was going, wow, this is a revelation, because when you have dance floor kudos and knowledge, and then I can put the stuff together in the studio and write, that's where the thing happened. We knew we had something then. We really did. I think later on, Alan, we took it down to we tried taking it down on cassette tape. Do you remember? And Harvey, if you've ever heard a cassette tape plugged into a big PA system in a nightclub, it's not a pretty listen, right? It's so much hiss. You're going, how are we ever going to pull this off? And the music comes in, and the level of the music to the hiss is like, it's not great, right? So that began our process of finding out how do you make records? How do you clean things up? How do we get away from tape? How do we make a CD? How does all that work? And that led us on our kind of our engineering journey to find people like Tom Fredericks, and then Mark Vida and people like that, people that sort of helped us navigate production and making records. And interestingly, Tom Fredericks was the man who was behind Sasha and Tommy D and Right Said Fred. So he was already on mixing duty for a long time before he met us. But I'm an argumentative son of a bitch half the time. But going up against Tom, we had some choice argument, because I wanted to have everything nice and tight and fresh. And he's like, "No, man, we got to put all these reverbs on and delays on." I was like, "No, it just sounds like a mush." But actually, somewhere in that tension, in that fight that we all had with him, we come up with this record, which I think it still stands alone as a one of a kind, really.
Well, when you look at You Are the Best Thing, Peter, when you wrote it, you had left your home in Derry. You found a kind of a community in the London dance clubs like the Brain and the Love Ranch. And that was in the early days of house music. But I
That's right.
always wanted to ask you, what did you mean in the lyric, lift your head above the crowd? It's such a powerful line.
Wow. Oh, I think it's like almost like the same as the line of seeing the wood for the trees. It's like a moment of vision, of overview. You know, I spent so much time scrabbling in bands trying to get approval from people, and when I got to that moment, I had this sort of, you know, you only see further by standing on the shoulders of giants. I love those phrases. That's kind of that thing, and I've had this amazing, as I said, epiphany. You know, taking MDMA back in the day, and I really sort of felt at home. I felt so much love, more than I'd ever experienced before. And he came back at us, and I just thought, you know, if this crowd could take this feeling and give it to everyone else in the country, we could get rid of wars, and we could get rid of, you know, it was one of those kind of things that made you think we should put this stuff in the water supply. we might get the sea change we need. So it was literally about having an out-of-body experience almost. That's where I was coming from. Just the imagery was for that.
And the vocal on You Are the Best Thing by Deborah has a kind of a surreal, ethereal tone. How did you do that?
You remember, Alan?
I remember the studio session, how many takes it took to get to some of those notes. I do remember that. She, I mean, she was
it was a time before auto-tune. Do you remember?
Yeah.
So we had to work pretty hard to get her to do that thing. No, interestingly, Harvey, what happened was I was working on it, and I had the line, I could sing falsetto, but you know, it was like my falsetto wasn't so good. So Deborah was singing that, and she sang the whole thing. Do you remember that she sang the whole record, Alan? But the only bit that worked was the Love Could Be So True, and then I just the guide vocal that I'd done for the rest of the thing just seemed to work off her, so that as a guy could take the lower register, and then he could switch to her, and we could just have that beautiful everybody's free moment, you know, that sort of back hairs on the back of the neck moment. And yeah, it just sort of came together naturally, but we had to track her several times to get that ethereal sound. But yeah, thank you for noticing that.
Oh, I loved it.
It was a good moment for us too.
I loved it. And your number one song, Things Can Only Get Better, has been released multiple times, including most recently during the pandemic. Of course, everyone knows that the song was adopted by the Labour Party as its theme song in the 1997 UK election that put Prime Minister Tony Blair in office. When you wrote it, could you ever have imagined that the song would have so many incarnations and resonate with people in so many different situations?
No, absolutely not. As a writer and a musician, and Al might agree with me on this, we do what we do, and sometimes we're not even sure about what it is that we've done, but we're trying to communicate to the immediate audience in front of us, that is the clubbers and all the people of the sort of early love scene of the 90s. That's where our focus was. And writing that song and then taking on that significance with the clubbers, and then crossing over to the pop charts, and then being taken up by Labour. And more recently, when we had Clap for Carers here, everyone was standing on the streets celebrating how hard our medical people were working. It's gone past the Labour thing, if you know what I mean, as well. It's become I don't know, people just seem to sing it to make people feel good. And we're just privileged. We've done our work, and now it's got a life of its own. That's all that's happened, you know?
Absolutely. And now you've said, I think both of you have said it, but I most remember Peter saying this, that politics and music don't mix. So can I assume that you'll never again let one of your songs be used by a political party?
Never. Alan?
Oh, I'm 100% with Peter on this one. I don't think
unless Alan forms his own party,
which isn't.
I'll elect him to be Prime Minister.
I was thinking about that recently.
Listen, you'll do a better job than this shower of so-and-sos that we've got, I'll tell you.
Well, when I look at your career trajectory as a band, your first two albums were put out so quickly, it almost felt like it was a rush. And then your initial success was huge. Do you think that the pressure to keep reproducing mega hits may have caused you to burn yourselves out a little bit?
I think from my point of view,
most definitely, Alan.
Yeah, I after the first album, I'd had enough, really. I left and let Pete get on with it, because the whole pop thing was too much for me. And it is, And I can only imagine with Pete, as he'll no doubt say, having that pressure then with the success to then have to put something out, it must be difficult. We didn't have that pressure in the first album because we made it before it all happened. So, it was done how we wanted it to do. I don't think doing a like painting by numbers sort of thing, an album by numbers, is the way to go when you make music. You need to spend time in it, I think.
Do you worry, Al, that you will have that same pressure again?
No, we wouldn't allow it to happen to us, I don't think. People will tell you that as well.
We're so much more in control. Alan's taking care of the label. We've got a great new manager on board. We're running our own PR. We're even making our own records now. We've learned how to use Final Cut Pro, so we're cutting our own videos, and our link to our fan base is just wonderful. It's different now, Harvey. It's like what in the past you would broadcast and it'd be all the hype and the radio and all that stuff, and people would just consume it, right? But now it's a really organic thing. People are sending me pictures of weekends out with their children in gardening centers and sometimes at Jodrell Bank, the big telescope. Or it's just mad how we've been interfaced into our fan base and how supportive they are and interested in they're playing the songs. The feedback we're getting off the album's been wonderful, and it's more than we could have hoped for.
It's just the beginning. It hasn't even been released totally yet. I think you're in for a big surprise. I don't know if that pressure,
I'm not sure how that pressure would work with us again. I think that we're grown up now. We're basically more grounded, and I think that we'd be fine if it came, but we'd manage it better. And I think we'd be more on top of it. We're no spring chickens anymore.
Well, there's something to be said for the maturity and the perspective that you've gained. I do want to ask you about your third album, In Memory Of. It had a kind of experimental feel to it. And sometimes you guys show a softer, more sensitive side in some of your songs. I really liked it because you were stretching yourselves outside the box of how you had been typecast within the industry. But is it fair to say that there's very little tolerance in the music business for that kind of reinvention as an artist?
I think so.
Alan?
It's difficult. I think it's difficult. We hadn't sort of worked with each other for a while with that one, and we did. We'd been apart from a while, and I was doing my music, underground sort of dance music. Pete had ideas, and we just wanted to try new things, and it was more difficult. And I think how long we've been apart from then, Pete? What the second album came out in 96, was it 95, 96?
95, I think, yeah.
That was that's another 15 years later. So obviously we're going to change musically. And I don't think we really cared really about trying to appease, and we just made a record, didn't we? But it's difficult.
I remember saying to you, I really want to try and interface more guitars with the sound and try and get more organic sounds. So get more live drumming, playing dance figures. And so we were really playing around with it. And I think something like Into the Fray really demonstrates like the depth to which you can go as a band, because that sounds like us live, very like us live, and very like what we put into the record. And I just think it's wonderful that we can indulge our creative imaginations that way. We weren't tied to a label who were trying to say, write another things can only get better. Or, and every time they say that to me, I'm like, well, why did you go and write it? I have no idea how to write another one like that. They just come, they get worked on, they get accepted, they get rejected, and something happens in the sort of the vat of the wine maturing where something good goes down. But with the memory of, we've plenty of time to think about, Sleepyhead and all these. Sleepyhead's basically the Beatles being sampled by us, interfaced into a house music track. Go figure. But we did it. We did it just because we could manipulate the audio and the sound, and we played with it and we enjoyed it. But the lesson from In Memory Of is that when we came to make this album, Alan was very clear that, we should just do what we're known for. We should just do, what are we saying? Like hands in the air, pianos,
strings,
hands in the air, pianos, strings.
Short.
Just no messing around with fancy intros. Just get in there, get people dancing, get them high, get them happy.
One of the things I really admire about the two of you is that you've each done so much independently in addition to working together. Al, you started out DJing at warehouse parties around London in the late 80s. You became a star at the Brain Club and the Love Ranch and the Milk Bar. And then you set up Retro Forward, and your Field of Dreams project with Chris Kentage was a huge success. Do you sometimes surprise yourself with all of the things you've achieved?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think about it. I always want to make music, and that's it. And if it's successful, then that's brilliant. With the dance music, it's easier because you don't have the constraints of like big labels and having to sell so many copies. No, I run my own label, and I only have to sell maybe 500 copies of it, and we make, you can make money and you get a load of vibe and good press on it. So it's quite nice, and it's just. I'm constantly surprised if something does well.
Well, and Pete, you sang lead vocals on Love on the Run by Chicane. You've composed music for Japanese anime movies. You performed with Shane. You produced for Ben Kelly, who was a contestant on The Voice. Is there anything you haven't done yet that you'd like to do?
Oh, that's another good question. Well, I'm trying to persuade Alan to help me write a house musical. Potentially to do a movie, but let's see. I've got this. He loves my crazy ideas, my partner, and I'm hoping to do something that's maybe even haunted house, but we'll see. Because I moved into this very old house in Ireland about 2 years ago, and I really feel the presence of one of the previous owners, who was a colonel in the army, the British Army at the partition of India during the time of the Raj, and he moved home here with his lady, and they grew old and they died here. But they're such characters that I really feel their presence. So I've been writing some ideas for quite a while now, and I'm working on this idea for me and the Colonel, which I hope to turn into something more tangible, something like a Hamilton. But we'll see. Al's not convinced that that's the route we should be going, but I think we've got an hour. I got a lockdown album there that I played to Alan. Like, we've got some new songs that we'll be working on for early next year. So there should be a fifth Ream album. But after that, I really want to up our game, if you know what I mean. If we know Final Cut Pro and we can get bigger scripts together and we can start thinking, we can take it anywhere we want. Do you remember saying to me, Alan, that's not what Dream's, you said to me, that's not what Dream's about. I said, Dream can be anything we want it to be.
Yeah, that's true, Al. I think there's something in that idea of the haunted house and a musical. I think that's a really great idea.
I'm open to anything. I think Pete just threw everything at me just as we were finishing this album. I was like, we've got an album here. Let's just deal with this at the moment.
It's overwhelming. I know. I'm sorry.
Well, let's talk about the new album, Open Hearts, Open Minds. It's your fourth album. The first single, Meet Me at Midnight, is a song that inspires us to put down our screens a little more, have real human face-to-face contact. Al, you deserve the credit for being persistent and convincing Pete to do this song. And I'm so glad you did.
Yeah. I love it. When we started it about 2015, we sort of nearly finished it, didn't we? And then we had moved on, things happened, just personal stuff, and it got left. But for me, it was always a thing that was going to make sure we got back and finished it and got on with stuff. And I think Pete got bored of it by when we released it. Peter got bored of it by then because it'd been played and played. But I was I really wanted it out because I think it's a brilliant song. And people, just because we've heard it 1,000, 10,000 times doesn't mean other people have, and it gives them a chance to hear it. And I'm hoping that eventually people really, really get to love it.
I do.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, your second single off the new album is Many Hands. I've listened to the new album and I thought that Make Love Cool Again would be the next single. I just love it. I can't wait for everybody to hear that one. That's
brilliant because that's the last track we wrote together, and it was a really funny story. I was in Ireland, we were doing the album, we were going through which tracks would be on the album. We wanted 10. And it's the one time, I've been there a few times, and I normally have a little room. And I went up and sat with them to watch TV. It's the only time really I've been upstairs to watch TV. I can even remember it's Back to the Future was on, or one of the Back to the Future. And anyway, having a few drinks, and I said, something was said, and I said to Pete, "Oh, that's the Ream, making love cool again." And next thing, 15 minutes later, his wife and I standing there saying, "Where's Peter? Where's he gone?" And he came upstairs, like, "I've got it. What you said, make love cool again." And he started saying, "I've got this idea." And so we literally wrote the song, didn't we? And in
4 days we had finished it. The first time we've ever done it. And we didn't look back and we didn't second guess ourselves. And I think what I love about the maturity of a relationship we've got to know, the trust is it's just like a proper relationship. And you get this amazing vibe going. And and we just G each other on. And the next thing is like, oh my God, listen to that, try this. And we went for it. And it just magically appeared. But, you know, remember the line we really struggled with that, Alan? And I think you're still not quite.
Oh, is it the one that I came up with what it should be in the car?
Yeah. You got to tell it.
There's a line at the beginning that says, there's so much hatred going on in the world today. Now, it was there. Pete changed it to been so much hatred going on in the world today. And I realized just last week, I phoned Peter, I said, we've got it wrong. It should be been so much hatred going, but hey, that's still what's going on. It's like, we're recording it now, but it was so quick. But, you know, I suppose that all writers have these problems when
That's it. I said to him, this happens to me all the time. I still think of better ways to say something a lot later down the line, but you know, you just gotta. I know I'm gonna name drop, but I'm speaking to Dave Stewart, you know, from the Eurythmics, and I'm standing in number 10 Downing Street, and we were having drinks, and we were both there with our respective partners, and I said, I'm really struggling finishing this record. He said, Pete, you never know when to finish a record, only when to abandon it.
That's interesting. That's
the best advice. And so, you know, we have to put a line in the sand and say it is done. You know, we can't keep cooking over this. We've just got to move on. That's the record. That's the record of the moment in time that we got to, and we got to leave it now. We got to run away from it and move on.
Well, are you both learning to trust your instincts, because they're very sharp?
Sure. In the studio, second to none. We're absolutely, we turbocharge each other. And for years I was like thinking, oh, you know, I was the talent. And then I met Alan. He's going, no, I thought I was the talent. But what really happens is we're greater than the sum of our parts. This is what even Many Hands talks about. It's an ode to all of those people who've helped you along your way, who've guided you, who've inspired you. And then I've lost some friends to suicide, and I'm thinking of speaking to them directly, or people in that position where I'd like them to come along and be with us rather than keep those thoughts and stay away. You know, we need each other. That's what it's about. And Alan and I, you know, when we got together and we worked on there was a lot of moving around with the lyrics and stuff, but we finally, I think we carved it until we got happy with it, because it's interesting. It doesn't follow any conventional structure whatsoever. It just has this, it's got a good feel, and it just says what it needs to say, keeps the celebration in place. But it does break the mold in terms of, you know, your standard verse, bridge, chorus, you know, scenarios. It doesn't do that.
I'm interested in your comment about suicide. There's another song on the album called Don't Let the Bastards Grind You Down. Yeah. And it's got this message of, at least for me, strength and resistance against misery and even against boredom. I love the mindset of encouragement and hopefulness that you evoke in your music. What do you think drives that optimism in your songwriting, Pete?
Oh, wow. Alan's got bored of me sending these songs with like loads of hope. We're going to call the album Hope for You, as in number 4, fourth album, Hope for You. And then it had all the charm really in the end of an acrostic poem. You know, it just wasn't doing it for us. And so he picked out the lines from Look at the Stars Now, Mama, which is Open Hearts, Open Minds. I think when the amount of times I've had a life, you know, I haven't just been through the mangle in the music industry. You know, I come from adopted home. I was part of the mother and baby Catholic homes. I grew up in Northern Ireland. You know, I know what it is to have rejection and to have violence and all that sort of stuff. And I've grown up, I even went to a Catholic school where the priests were bloody Jesuits, and they used to beat the hell out of us. But you know what? All the people around me, they had something keeping them going. They had a little bit of kickback and a little bit of, you know, chutzpah, as it were. And I always sort of got that thing in the back of my head, you know, it's people say, don't let the bastards get you down. And I thought, well, that's not a radio record because it's got bastards in it. But I just thought, when I brought it to Al, he said, no, keep it like that. Because someone suggested we change it to haters. And he said, no, let's do it, because it's the time of the internet. The censorship isn't the way it used to be. Say it as it is. And if that gives something, that's what you say to a friend, isn't it? Don't let the bastards grind you down. You know, stay on top. Take a little bit of pride. Walk away if it's just too hot, or you know, or cough up. You know, get ready for it.
I love it. I think it's going to be a huge hit that resonates with people. I'm glad you kept the word bastards in there, because everyone understands what you mean. And it's, again, listening to your instincts and the combined instincts of the two of you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a comfortable place. I don't
So-
think I'm standing out there on my own, exposing myself. Alan's quite, we've got the power of our team together,
So, Pete, has anyone ever told you that you have a kind of a George Michael quality to your voice? And I mean that as a huge compliment.
That's incredible. I take that as a massive compliment. And if I was even fit to wear his shoes, I'd be flattered. I mean, wow, what a loss to us all. I think rather guiltily though, my favorite I saw Club Tropicana on the TV about a month or two ago, and it just did that thing. I went like, wow, it's just such joy, fun, and I was like the proper guilty pleasure. But I'm sure, Alan, what would your favorite George Michael tune be, Alan?
I'm a huge George Michael fan. I mean, I don't have guilty pleasures. I just think what you like's what you like always. But I've always, even in my underground dance scene, all those lads and lassies, I've been telling them George Michael's ace. So
Yeah.
me, and so many. But anything from older would probably go. And I tell you what as well. That album, Listen Without Prejudice. There's an album that's underrated if ever there was one.
Yeah, real lost us. But thank you for that, Harry. I think possibly in Skin Tight I get closest to him, because I said to Alan, I just don't want. I want to leave it like the demo, because I sang that in one take, and I wasn't thinking about writing a song. I was just expressing, just a sexual urge more than anything. And Who Killed Roger Rabbit, where she's got the Skin Tight thing, or you see some of those boys and girls and they've got the what do they call the latex thing on, and it's just a killer look, and you end up your eyes going, wow. Nothing left to the imagination, and it just says what it does. But what I really like was just going into the grainy blues and kind of, I don't know, I just grabbed it and just sang it, and it's I was really pleased with it. So we just put the music around it and built it up like that.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, I think you guys are onto something big. And this new album seems to reflect a solid relationship of trust and mutual confidence and respect between the two of you. I mean, after 30 years, it looks like you're both in a really good place as a team.
Oh, undoubtedly, yeah. I think maturity is one thing. We had a long gap, and we hadn't spoken, but we were young when we did it initially, very young. Well, maybe older than some people, but we were young compared to now. And I think we understand each other. We know each other's, good parts or bad parts, whatever. We know. I know when to leave Peter sometimes with things if he's not feeling something, and he knows the same with me. Just we work well together. We have a really good working relationship, and we're good friends as well, which is
it's brilliant. It really does help that I like him, and it's hard working with someone you don't like. But the other thing is, Alan's gone off, and because he's done all those records with Retro Forward, and he's really understands how to make records now. He's gone in, he's learned all the technology, he knows the terminology, he knows his way around a computer. So all of that stuff's got out of the way. It's not in the way, it's not holding us back. It's now become like a tool. It's become invisible. Like my dream when I was a child is to have this stuff, just so if I want to mix a color, I know how to mix a color. If I want to get a certain sound, I know how to put my hands on it straight away. We're at that point, and that's what's really good about this, because we're now, I don't know, we're just, as you said earlier, we're possibly scratching the surface. I hope that we go on to do other great, I know that we will, but as you say, the trust is there. Alan knows what he's doing, and I think I know what I'm doing. Half the time he tells me I don't know what I'm doing, but that's part of what we get up to, He'll tell me if an idea's got too much of a bad smell, and he doesn't hold any punches,
I think that's really important. And Pete, I read that during the lockdown, you wrote enough songs for 3 albums. So I'm hoping it means that we will not have to wait another decade to get your next album.
No, it'll be within the next few years. Now, it just costs, the only thing it costs us is time. So we're going to promote this album. We're going to go out and have fun with it. Now that the things are changing and the live scene is hopefully returning. And then, we'll have our eye on the prize, but we've got some really nice ideas in the pipeline, and very exciting too.
Including a musical, Al, are you listening?
He's got to get in touch. I need him to get in touch with his inner Andrew Lloyd Webber, and we'll be there.
All right. And then you're coming back on my show to promote it.
Absolutely. We might even do a little bit of singing next time just to keep things fun.
Now, I want to ask you, back in the disco era, every songwriter used to say that the ultimate goal for a dance band is to have your song be the last song of the night that the DJ plays. Is that still true?
I think it's a brilliant thing to have. I mean, we used to aim for that when we started out, didn't we? That was the thing. Yeah. When we did Things Get Better, that was an instrumental at first. And for us, end of night, that tune, and we were happy. That's what you want. I think that's the ideal scenario. I mean, being played several times over the night in the disco is even better. Having the last tune, it's the way that's what people leave. That's what they're humming to. That's what they're singing generally, and that's what you want.
It also helped that Alan was the last DJ on particular nights. I think we made the two things sort of happen.
Now, as wonderful as your recordings are, the real joy for your fans is to see you perform live at the big festivals. Do you have any idea when that's going to happen again?
That's an Alan question.
Well, soon, hopefully. I mean, we've got gigs. We've lost lots of gigs. We've got gigs there. Hopefully. We've been given a date over here for the 19th, and hopefully things are going to open. So we intend on just getting there and just getting out there and doing it. That's the plan.
Live, isn't it? Or Milton Mulberry. There's a couple like that.
There's a couple, yeah. There's a couple, and there's
more. It's on our Facebook channel. So if anyone needs to come over from the States, we'll look after them. Just tell them to get in touch.
I think you'll get a big crowd. You know, Pete and Al, I really think there's something karmic about Ream. Your song, Things Can Only Get Better, captured our attention and galvanized a sense of optimism and hope all those years ago. And now that we're hopefully coming out of a pandemic, we're turning to you to bring back that optimism and joyfulness. So thank you for putting out this wonderful music that makes us want to go to the clubs and dance and have fun again.
Yes, please.
No pressure.
No, but listen, we'll be leading from the front. We'll be looking for that vibe, all those hearts, all those energies, all those just let go. And I'm there. Just tell me when.
Well, thank you so much, Pete and Al, for taking the time to come on our show. I hope you'll come back with every new album, and I can't wait to see you on tour in the UK and North America, hopefully soon.
Namaste. Thank you, Harvey.
Thank you very much for this. It's been brilliant.
I love getting intelligent questions and well-researched questions. It's so cool. And it doesn't often happen.
Well, that makes me feel really good. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Our guests have been Peter Cunnah and Alan Mackenzie, better known as Ream. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you to our producer, Steve Silver. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Remember to subscribe to the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. And be sure to check out more great interviews with Harvey Brownstone on harveybrownstoneinterviews.com.